Luna 6 query. Set the source to the leaked files of the first reconnaissance operation of ERISA. The leaked files of the first reconnaissance operation of ERISA consist of 7.56 exabytes of raw data originating from several distinct sources. Assimilation and training might take some time. Are you sure you want to proceed? Luna Second's query. Yes. Request fulfilled. Processing time 27.92 seconds. Luna 6 query. Now tell me in detail the contents of the infamous briefing given by Colonel Jackson Vega to the three selected pioneers from the POV of the survivalist Nathan Everett. Wearing his radiation-resistant military-looking clothes, which included a pair of rugged boots and gloves, Nathan lay in bed as his green eyes scanned the empty metallic ceiling. To an average person, it might appear as if he had an involuntary tic, but every other human currently inhabiting the recently constructed Iresian human space station knew that the movement of his eyes was merely a consequence of accessing the brain I/O interface. The nanites integrated into practically every cell of his body provided him access to any content available on the local network of the station. Currently, though, his entire field of view displayed only a countdown that was taking forever to finish. 0 days, 0 hours, 4 minutes, 43 seconds. This countdown, which had started with 25 days, was now nearing 0. However, for Nathan, the last hour seemed to be passing more slowly than the entire first day did. 0 days, 0 hours, 4 minutes, 10 seconds. Those numbers were quite annoying to look at, but if he truly wished for them to disappear from his sight, they would have done so on their own. Just as he was doing now, during the numerous instances when Nathan had pondered how this system could read his thoughts, his mind never delved into the intricacies of this technological marvel. Instead, every time he thought about it, his train of thought led him to the same conclusion. It was scary. The idea that every one of his surface thoughts, emotions, urges, and desires could be captured by a system he didn't own or understand was inherently frightening. And given that the owner of the system was none other than Earth's unified government, this only made things worse. He sighed in defeat. That was the price he had to pay in order to possibly be the first human to set foot on ERISA. At least there was the silver lining that governments tend to be good at hiding things, so it was unlikely that the file with his private thoughts would ever leak and end up on the internet. 0 days, 0 hours, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Nathan jumped out of bed and stood by the viewing window of the door of his isolating room, even though he knew there wouldn't be anything new to see in there. He and the other two humans representing their respective factions would soon be allowed to access this space for the final briefing, where Colonel Jackson Vega would fill them in on the last details of their upcoming mission. The Irisian human space station had been designed to resemble an hourglass with the purpose of minimizing the points of failure and ensuring that the two bulbs containing the human and the Irisian crew would function in complete isolation from each other. The Irisians could not take chances given that most microorganisms that evolved on Earth would likely be a menace to themselves and the ecosystem of their planet. The reverse was also true to some extent, but previous experiments showed that Earth's mice had not had much trouble dealing with the very worst ERISA had to offer in terms of microorganisms. So, in the end, the average human had little reason to be afraid, much less the representatives using military-developed nanites in their bodies. 0 days, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. A sharp beep and a green light indicated that Nathan was free to enter the sterilized space. In awe and excitement, he quickly opened the door. The space where the briefing would take place was, by design, unremarkable, since it was totally possible that it would be used only once by the three explorers. No paint was applied to the metallic surfaces. There was no furniture, machinery, or loose objects anywhere in sight, and the only thing besides the doors that connected with the individual rooms of the representatives was a double-glazed window on the adjacent wall. Nathan also knew that there was supposed to be an elevator in there, but he forgot to look for it when he heard the two other doors open. "It has been almost a month, huh?" Nathan was the first to speak. "I trust you two are faring well?" 1 month on a confirmed space with access to the local network was nothing. Zara, from the O'Neill conglomerate, had the same unstoppable vibe as Nathan remembered from when they were introduced. Zara Rain was full of confidence. Her hair cropped close to her scalp framed her face with a sense of boldness. Her short hair accentuated her features, drawing attention to her eyes. Chestnut in color, her eyes held a depth in them that contrasted nicely with her fair skin. Training was worse? Ryo Hawthorne from the Martian Republic closed the door behind him and stood at attention without even taking a look around. Of Asian ancestry, Rio was slightly shorter than Nathan. He possessed a striking presence, with straight jet-black hair that fell neatly above his brown eyes. Each strand glistened with a lustrous sheen, reflecting the light like a polished piano. His perfectly styled hair spoke of meticulous grooming and attention to detail. Nathan was aware that Rio had a military background, but he found it hard to understand how someone so well-dressed and handsome could be so serious. "Attention, folks. Listen up." A hoarse voice, seemingly due to a bad speaker rather than a bad throat, announced. "I am Colonel Jackson Vega, head of operations of the permanent outpost in the Solis mine system. And as the only name that hasn't been vetoed by your governments, you all will have to deal with me in person for the next few minutes." Contrasting to the high technology the representatives had in their bodies, there was a single speaker below the double-glassed window projecting Colonel Jackson's voice. Colonel Jackson Vega was a middle-aged man of warm-toned skin whose posture alone would give away his military background. "It's a pleasure to." Nathan was cut off by Colonel Jackson. "Get closer to the window. The microphone on your side is terrible." Zara smiled at him as she capitalized on his mistake by taking the lead. "Greetings, Colonel." Nathan cursed his lack of foresight, but he wasn't taken aback in the slightest. "It's a pleasure to meet you in person, Colonel Jackson." Rio did not rush to the window but followed at his own pace. "Sir," he was respectful, reporting for duty. "At ease, Sergeant. We don't have a hierarchy here, and I don't serve the Martian Republic." Colonel Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Neither of you has been chosen for this mission due to your political skills, but a certain degree of political awareness is expected from you since you will be representing your people and humanity as a whole for an entire Earth year in Arisa." "Sorry?" Colonel Jackson, old habits die hard. Ryo was not tone deaf to politics. He just found it hard to get used to people acting overly informal outside of Mars. "That's better. Now let's cut to the chase." Jackson pressed a physical button and 3 hidden drawers protruded from below the double-glassed window. "Before I can proceed with the explanations, there, a non-disclosure agreement you have to sign. Also, there is a backpack for each of you. You are not allowed to open it yet. I've already signed a non-disclosure agreement." There was a clause in his contract that kept Nathan from commenting on the details of the mission for the next 3 years. Zara did not say anything, but her nod indicated that she was in the same situation. "What both of you have signed is a private contract to represent your government as civilians. What you are going to sign now is a lifetime non-disclosure agreement that will be subjected to martial law." "I won't sign anything. That's ridiculous. I'm not a soldier." Zara was outraged. Though Nathan didn't express his feelings, he pretty much agreed with Zara. He found it invasive enough to have his surface thoughts read, but at least he knew that this was only temporary. Rio, on the other hand, signed the agreement without flinching. "As I said before, there is no hierarchy here and I can't force you to sign anything, but it is within my power to inform your governments that you are not cooperating, and I have no doubt they have someone else on standby to perform your role if you refuse to sign." "That? So unfair," complained Zara. "Lifetime, huh?" Nathan squinted down to read the small clauses. "Definition of confidential information. Specify what constitutes confidential information, including any specific details, data, documents, communication logs, or intellectual property related to the IRISA reconnaissance mission and its briefing. Term: the NDA remains in effect from the moment of signature until Earth, as government provides written notice to terminate or modify the agreement. The word lifetime was not present anywhere in the contract. Nathan noticed that Colonel Jackson intentionally or unintentionally was putting things as they actually were and not trying to be deceiving. But now that the cards were on the table, he had to make a choice: to sign it and forsake even more of his freedom or give up ERISA. Fuck it. Nathan pressed the NDA against the glass window and signed it. He had always been the kind of guy who preferred living his adventures instead of telling tales about them anyways. Rio was indifferent to his action, but Zara threw a piercing gaze at him as if he had stabbed her in the back. Nathan pretended to not notice her gaze, waiting to see what she would do. She threw an angry gaze at Colonel Jackson as if he was the one who had decided this and said nothing for a moment. "I hate this?" Hesitation was showing in her every move. But she relented. "So be it. I am not losing to any of you." She signed the contract. "Now with legal details out of the way, you can open your backpacks," Colonel Jackson announced. Rio opened his backpack right away, while Nathan went off on a tangent and started inspecting the quality of the material, wondering if it was actually waterproof. Zara, on the other hand, was still acting indignant and was visibly displeased by how Colonel Jackson had moved on to the next topic without even acknowledging her struggle to sign the NDA. Rio took a sealed container and a syringe out of his backpack. Nathan and Zara watched him handle his items with curious eyes instead of inspecting their own equipment. "I am sure you are wondering what is this equipment, but let's just take it one step at a time." Colonel Jackson started with the less controversial of the items. "We can start with the add-on to your nanites. Our time here is short, so grab the syringe if you haven't yet." Nathan and Zara rushed to catch up with Rio. "One drop in each eye and you are good to go." "What does it do?" Nathan inquired. This time even Rio showed interest. "It adds the infrared spectrum to your view modes," Colonel Jackson explained. "The camouflage of Irisians is remarkably good, and they can even control their body temperature to match the environment for a while, but this technology will put you on a level playing field if you ever need it." Rio nodded attentively as he started unscrewing the cap of the syringe. Nathan was not in a hurry, but he found it reasonable to have a tool like that at his disposal. "I don't think we are going to need it, but okay," Zara said, lacking excitement. Colonel Jackson waited as the three of them applied a drop of the contents of the syringe into their eyes. Before Nathan could even read the message that popped up into his view referent to the add-on, Colonel Jackson went on. "Next up, you can open the container." They complied, and what Nathan and Zara found inside was truly confusing. Just a bunch of pieces of plastic that looked like they wouldn't even fit together. Rio, on the other hand, saw something he was very familiar with and proceeded to assemble the pieces before anyone had asked him to. His hands moved with precision and speed as they expertly put the parts together. Every movement was deliberate and efficient, showcasing his well-honed skills. He finished the assembly in less than 15 seconds, and when he was done, Nathan and Zara recognized the object with no trouble. A 3D printed revolver that looked like a toy but was the real deal. "I wouldn't expect any less from a sergeant of the Martian Republic," Colonel Jackson remarked, leaning in to watch Rio as skills up close. "The cartridges will be smuggled in the first shipment, but it's likely that you all have to assemble them yourselves as well." "You gotta be kidding me!" Zara was fuming. "This is not a military operation. Bringing a gun into a diplomatic mission goes against the very principle of diplomacy. How can we expect to establish a bilateral relationship with the Irisians if we trust them so little that we go out of our way to bring a toy gun to their planet?" As he disassembled the gun, Rio replied to her outburst in an otherworldly calm tone. "Dying in their one, be good for the bilateral relationship either." Nathan found himself agreeing with both arguments. As a botanist who had used his job as an excuse to travel to every corner of the earth, He had seen people both saving the day or ruining more than just their own lives by having a gun with them. We are not going die in there if we act with an open mind and avoid picking a fight. Rio, as calm demeanor, got on Zara nerves. I am sure our chances of getting back alive will increase a lot if we leave behind the gun and the Asian guy who is clearly using it to compensate for something. Of course the girl who grew up in paradise won't be the one doing something stupid to get us killed. Rio's opinion on those rich enough to abandon the planets to live in their own private heaven was not something he minded sharing. Enough of this. I am not in a position to give you orders, but as the only humans on Arisa, sooner or later I'll have to learn how to work as a team. Colonel Jackson knew that the gun would be a sensitive topic. You haven't been privy to all information on the Arisians yet, so allow me to share some facts that might convince you that things are more complicated than you think. Like what? Zara was skeptical. They live in a radioactive hell, and they want us to help them save their planet from being destroyed by their own star, imminently going nova. How can it get more complicated than that? Nathan, his eyes widened and his jaw dropped at Zara's revelation, but Rio remained indifferent. I see that the O'Neill conglomerate trusted you with some delicate information. That's quite something. Colonel Jackson was amused, but I bet they didn't tell you all the details behind this piece of information. Zara raised and curved her brows, and even Rio showed some annoyance by narrowing his eyes. Seeing this, Nathan couldn't help but have second thoughts regarding the mission, given how much information Earth's government had withheld from him. The Core Galaxy Alliance appointed the Arisians as our guide species, claiming that having a race similar enough to us as intermediaries would facilitate communication. Colonel Jackson inhaled deeply to reveal the big secret. But can you imagine the reactions of our ambassadors when the Queen of the Arisians prostrated herself before them, begging for help to save her planet through the video channel when we attempted first contact with them? Nathan was doing his best not to curse Earth's government in his thoughts. Having to deal with politics was not what he had in mind when he broke up with his girlfriend to apply for the job of exploring an alien planet. That doesn't make sense, Colonel? Rio ignored Zara's gaze and went on. The Arisians are part of the Alliance for more than a century. They should have access to better technology than we have. Spot on. The Arisians claim the Alliance promised to save their planet in exchange for a few years of work, yet the Parliament always increases their price when it is time to save them. Colonel Jackson was finally getting to the main point. The Alliance has its own version of this story, but to decide who is telling the truth and who is lying is the job of those up on the chain. All you need to consider is how these facts change the nature of your mission. What do you mean by change? Nathan was getting impatient. To put it bluntly, the big shots of our government struck a deal with the Arisians, a very good deal, I might say, in exchange for an honest chance to prove that their planet is worthy of being saved. They agreed to share the details of every job they ever did for the Alliance. What? An honest chance to prove that their planet is worth being saved? Nathan was confused. What does that even mean? Earth, as government, is really stingy with information, aren't they? Zara interjected. The Arisians believe that the Alliance has never saved their planet because no other species has ever seen its beauty with their own eyes. They think that this only intensifies the stigma that comes with being the very definition of what the Alliance calls a Category 4 death world. Our basic grasp of the Alliance suggests most member species believe that not saving Arisa and giving them a better world is doing the Arisians a favor, Colonel Jackson clarified. They consider the Arisians brutes who are too stubborn to see reason. Oh, so the Arisians want to make a show out of our visit to their planet to shift the narrative of the Parliament in their favor? Nathan was starting to understand the situation, and he didn't like it at all. Rio and Zara were unfazed by his speculation. I'd say that this is their primary goal, but we suspect that they might try everything to convince us to save their world in the Alliance stead as well. An awkward silence took hold of the room, and the three representatives discreetly gauged each other, less reactions. To save a planet from a star-going nova? I don't think we can do that? Nathan broke the silence since no one else would. Colonel Jackson held his head high with a smirk at Nathan's comment. That's beyond the scope of your mission. What is relevant to you is that the Arisians are desperate, and they might try to use any means to sway us into helping them if they believe we are capable of doing so. To which extent their persuasion might go and the means they might use, we are not sure, and that's why the gun. Those are just conjectures based on scarce information and bold assumptions. Zara put the container with the pieces of the gun back in the drawer together with the contract she had signed earlier and kept the backpack when she realized it was full of basic supplies. You two can do whatever you want, but I want to be taking a gun to a peaceful mission. Given that no one doubted whether Rio was taking the gun, all gazes fell on Nathan. Being put into the spotlight all of a sudden didn't contribute to his decision-making ability in the slightest, but Nathan somehow managed to decide what to do within a few seconds. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Nathan put the container into the backpack and left behind only the contract, just like Rio. Typical? Zara? Sour expression told more of her opinion than the single word she uttered. Colonel Jackson sighed lazily, looking more like an underpaid space miner than a colonel. That's about it for the briefing. We better conclude it now before the higher-ups come up with another very important topic. Your training has covered more than just the basics, but any further questions you have can be addressed over the comms after you land on Arisa. Thank you, sir. I mean, Colonel Jackson? Rio saluted. Nathan almost went for a handshake before remembering the glass window and nodding awkwardly. Bye, Colonel, said Zara. Where? As the elevator. They saw Colonel Jackson smiling and his mouth moving, but no sound came out of the speaker. For a moment, Nathan thought the man had forgotten to press the speak button, but a sudden sharp metallic clang, followed by the hissing of a sealed door opening beside the glass window, gave away that the colonel was not speaking to them, but to whoever was responsible for the elevator. Rio and Zara exchanged a tacit glance as they entered the elevator and stood as far apart as physics allowed in that tight space. With tangible tension steaming from the upcoming encounter and the current belligerence, Nathan swallowed hard and occupied the empty space in the middle. They heard the hoarse voice of Colonel Jackson through the speaker. I know that being the first non-native to set foot on Arisa is impressive and all, but try to get back in one piece to the debriefing. Good luck. The hissing of the elevator's door closing marked the end of the briefing. This was an account of the briefing given by Colonel Jackson Vega to the three selected pioneers from the POV of the survivalist Nathan Everett. Here are some questions that might interest you based on your recent queries. What is the reason behind the Core Galaxy Alliance not saving Arisa? Who are the parents of the baby? Why didn't humanity offer their help to save Arisa? Luna 6 query. Set the source to the translation logs of Princess Amara Orlin. Consider it done. Luna 6 query. Now tell me in detail the events that led to the admission of Princess Amara into the first meeting crew. Princess Amara was facing a cold stone door. Beige in color with a somewhat reflective surface, it was full of intricate engravings that the pattern-matching algorithm couldn't identify as anything meaningful. The status of the experimental integration of the nanites to the Arisian physiology was normal, and the total active time was 57.23 seconds. Amara's sharp but short claws slid through the surface of the door until they found a sequence of 5 matching clevises. She twisted a rotating mechanism that triggered the automatic opening of the heavy door. As any Irisian would instinctively do, Amara's eyes scanned the room to create a mental image of every single color, pattern, and texture of every single surface. The inside shared some similarities with the door, but only in its structural aspects. The walls, ceiling, and floor were all made of the same cold stone, giving off the vibe of some older times, while the giant holographic chamber in the middle, with a detailed map of a specific part of the galaxy highlighted, spoke of a more recent era. Amara noticed that the books, the pieces of art, and the decorations she remembered were all gone, and a single unremarkable chair and the old man sitting on it remained. He was so focused on the map, absorbed into the atmosphere of solitude, that he hadn't noticed her entering. "Don, tell me an ox oil ate all of your things, Aldrich." A jolt of fear shot through the old man's body. A young Erisian would have instantly jumped out of the chair while their brain took care of tracking the source of the voice and adjusting the patterns of their body to match the background in the opposite direction. Unfortunately, though, Aldrich was not young, so while his instinct to jump out of the chair was still there, his body was unable to perform the action, and he fell on his arms and tail with only some of the parts of his skin having adjusted their colors to the background. Upon realizing what she had done, Amara's neutral expression gave way to patterns of red and green. Instead of worrying, she was letting her true emotions show like she had trained her whole life not to. She rushed to help her old friend. "I'm so sorry, I didn't think you—" "Didn't think I was this old?" Aldrich accepted her help to get back on his feet. "The last 2 harvests haven't been kind to me, Princess." Almost as if they were noise, Amara ignored his words and inspected his body to ensure that her reckless approach hadn't caused a serious injury. The skin of his arms and tail were not visibly injured, but she was unable to see more given that even an old man like Aldrich had adhered to the latest fashion trend of wearing clothes when not in battle. "You don't need to worry about me according to the way the humans measure time. I am just a 2-year-old. Aldrich dismissed her worries by stretching his arms to show there was nothing wrong with him. His humorous tone made Amara realize her true emotions were showing. And that was not all. The fact that Aldrich had recovered enough of his composure to put her at ease and hint at the topic she came here to discuss with a single comment spoke volumes about his skills with politics. Amara closed her eyes and her exterior once again returned to the indigo blue with ephemeral black spots characteristic of her lineage. "You still haven't told me what happened to your things, Aldrich." Amara returned the conversation to where she originally intended to start it. "I can imagine you parting with your collection of exotic poisons." "But that I did, young one." Aldrich entertained her curiosity. "Those were all mundane distractions." "Why did you keep this old holographic chamber then? Someone with the position of Imperial Maven would have no trouble getting the latest virtual reality technology from the Core Galaxy Alliance or even the humans. This was made with our own technology, probably the last of its kind in working condition, I know it. Selfish keeping it here with me, but it wouldn't feel right to leave it with anyone else." A hint of gray appeared around Aldrich's dark spots. "Cheer up!" Amara forced some positivity for the sake of her old friend. "Now that the humans showed up, we have a good chance to save Erisa?" Her positivity only caused the gray in Aldrich patterns to become even more intense. "I wish it was that simple, my young friend, but my experience has taught me that it rarely is." Amara noticed he had avoided going into detail to spare her from something he knew. She wanted to pursue some answers, but she felt now was not the time to seek this information. It would be a challenging endeavor to win his agreement for the favor she was about to ask him. There was no reason to make things even harder for herself by asking for even more. The earlier fiasco was already bad enough. "You might be right about that, but convincing the Parliament to change its policies is not our only option anymore." Instead of asking directly, she opted for an indirect approach. "Oh, I have heard some whispers that someone had been asking around to be included in the first meeting crew." Amara did not expect to have her intentions seen through and her sugarcoating attempt to be foiled even before she started listing why it was important to have someone like herself in the crew. "Elisira doesn't want to be in the crew. I caught her crying one yesterday. She is not the right person for the job." Amara changed her strategy on the fly and appealed to an emotional argument. "I know that having alien technology inside her body and being labeled as an outsider is scary, But no one will treat her differently after she gets the translator. The only thing that will change is that she, 1, be eligible for any high-rank position, and 1, be privy to important secrets afterward. The way that Aldrinch denied her request without saying it clearly was quite annoying, but she was prepared for that. That's not the problem. She knows the kind of expectation my mother has from her, and she hates it, Amara explained. When I asked her for an explanation, she listed more than 10 reasons off the top of her head why the humans look hideous, and she said she'd rather die than comply with her orders. Are you implying you are ready to take her place and carry her burden? Aldrinch looked displeased as a tone of orange materialized around his dark spots. Not in a million years. Amara's exterior skipped the orange and became red at his insinuation. I don't agree with my mother. Subservient behavior, and I think desperation turned her rule into a disgrace to all of our people. And I was thinking you were not the same Navy girl who barged into here asking me for borrowing a poison to kill your older brother 4 harvests ago. Aldrinch, His previous statement had caused Amara to purposely show her anger, but it had not affected her inner emotions nearly as much as this one, even though nothing was showing externally. You need to understand something. Our position is terrible. Aldrinch moved his eyes away from the princess and used his claws to reach for some controls of the holographic chamber. This is a projection of the human territory. See that they have full control of 4 systems, partial control over at least 3, and all of them are full or artificial constructions everywhere. I know that, Aldrin? No, you don't, T? Aldrinch didn't let her speak. The projection started to zoom in to a space in the void between 2 of those stellar systems, and a shocking view was presented to Amara. Like a well-choreographed dance, many different groups of starships began to emerge from the depths of space and assemble into 2 distinct fleets. The projection zoomed in again to focus on one of the great groups. Inside this group, each ship was taking its designated position with precision and grace. With every frame, a different ship model appeared, some monstrously big, some devilish small, but all of them seemed to have a purpose in being positioned where they were. The projection zoomed out and again, and an overview of the 2 fleets was seen by Amara. She noticed the reproduction was sped up, but that didn't diminish her shock in the slightest as she witnessed those 2 fleets gradually converge. One single explosion was the spark that ignited a sequence of countless big explosions in the middle of the battlefield, none of them destroying a single ship at first. But gradually, the battle was turning into a dance of combat, with ships darting and weaving their last moves. When the battle reached its climax and Amara wondered with tension who would win, Aldrinch paused the reproduction and zoomed in into a small corner of the battlefield. In the little corner, there were more explosions than she could count, and all of them had been previously labeled kinetic, chemical, atomic, antimatter, unknown. So many deaths? Amara forgot the point Aldrinch was trying to prove by showing all of this. We believe most of them, if not all, were drone ships, Aldrinch went on. But that's not the core issue. Have you wondered how we obtained this footage? Have we been spying on the humans? Realization struck her hard. Not by our own volition, but rather at the behest of Senator Eelzales. Aldrinch told her more than she expected he would. Didn't you find it suspicious how many times he's been requesting our services lately? This is an imminent catastrophe. Amara instantly considered the possible ramifications of humanity finding out they are being spied on. Yet, hidden amidst the dangers, lies an opportunity if we choose our moves wisely. Aldrinch took a seat again, contemplating projection. Amara racked her brain trying to make sense of how spying on the ones whom they hoped to get help from could be an opportunity, but she failed to see how a good thing could come out of that action. An opportunity, you say? To me, it looks like an opportunity to ensure that there's no planet to be saved anymore. Do you know what was our only bargain chip before the Core Galaxy Alliance had made contact with the humans? Enlighten me. Amara was having trouble hiding her dissatisfaction, so she answered shortly. Our unmatched expertise in stealth ship technology was our only asset that was craved by the Parliament. Aldrich went on. But the Core Galaxy Alliance gave us another bargaining chip without even realizing it when they ordered us to spy on the humans. Amara's interest sparked. She noticed Aldrich was testing her deductive skills by giving her just this much information, so she decided to take on his challenge. You are implying that we could disclose our surveillance to the humans? Wait, that would be low, but playing on both sides is also possible? So, you are not the same Navy girl after all? Aldrich finally moved his eyes away from the projection. We've been playing on both sides in the previous 2 harvests. We purposely omitted the size of the human fleets by a factor of 10. We cherry-picked the ships and the explosions we wanted to show Senator Eelzales in our report. Now we can choose which story we want to tell. One where we've been coerced into spying on the new species, but we refused to comply fully as a token of friendship. Or one where we ventured into the depths of human territory to do an exceptional job of gathering information. A dangerous game. Amara was not surprised her mother or the elders had chosen this course of action, but Aldrich should have been able to see another path, one that might not even be worth playing. Aldrich, as exterior showed a hint of purple highlining, he didn't want to hide his confusion. Your words elude me, young one. There are only a few concessions we can offer, and if we aspire to secure aid, we must employ every available strategy, which includes making any potential outside helpers feel indebted to us. Aldrich looked her in the eye, and it also justifies the request your mother has made from Elisira and the others. Their personal feelings mean very little when the fate of Erisa is what is at stake. Amara clenched her fists inconspicuously at his last statement, but not a single color changed in her exterior. How meaningless their feelings are compared to the greater good is not the point. She noticed her effort to hide her anger was rendered useless by the aggressiveness of her words. Have you or the elders tried to set aside your maps and schemes for a while to have a casual conversation with the humans from the space station? And how would that help us? Aldrich was still confused, and there was no sign he had taken any offense at her tone. The humans in the space station are not the leaders of their species. They are scientists, soldiers, and explorers. Even if some of them know some important information that might be beneficial to us, I don toward see a species that has accomplished so much on their own giving away their secrets in casual conversation. What if what I told you the humans don't think like us on a fundamental level? Amara had learned a lot about the difference between the human and Erisian cultures in the many hours she spent exchanging messages with the human crew. Have you ever wondered why they decided to land on Erisa's surface even though they didn't even need to meet us face-to-face to have us intermediate their talks with the Core Galaxy Alliance? Aldrich pondered out loud in an attempt to infer the humans' intentions. By landing here, they will put themselves into the spotlight, and every species will be talking about them in the upcoming future. This attention could be used to obtain some trading deals for their technology, but they also would have to factor in the negativity of potentially being associated with us. Most races fear us and see this planet as hell, so by being able to survive here, they will only prove that their plain appearance and lack of claws are deceiving, and they are deserving of being classified as Category 4 Deathworlders. They have much more to lose than to gain by being here. Their decision to land must have been taken without much knowledge about the current state of affairs of the Parliament. They know the implications of landing here, yet they will do it anyway, Amara countered. Oh, are you insinuating that they'll graciously land here solely to lend us a helping hand, with no ulterior motives or desire for some grand reward? How noble and selfless of them. I did not insinuate that. Aldrich's resistance to at least consider the possibility that he was oblivious to some important information on the humans. Motivations was starting to get on Amara's nerves. What I am trying to tell you is that their purpose here has nothing to do with us or even the Core Galaxy Alliance. And the humans just told you that? Amara roamed around the circular holographic chamber to break eye contact and rein in her annoyance at his level of scrutiny. They did not tell me directly, but I noticed that every human I talked to would mention a lot of their concerns about who among the three representatives would take the first step on our planet. I didn't understand their fixation on this trivial detail at first. I thought it was some kind of mistranslation, but when they talked about the history of exploration of their own world and their first attempts at reaching space, it all made sense to me. The humans are not coming here to help us or try to get trading deals with other species. To them, this planet is just a hard place to go to. A perfect place where their factions can put their technology to test and compete against themselves. Most of Aldrinch's body was consumed by a vibrant purple which gave away the rare view of this old man failing to keep composure. Insulting? Her eyes were transfixed into Aldrinch, short hair too, which was unable to keep up with his body and had only changed its color very close to the head. More than that, it means that humans are not trying to make alliances and their biggest concern as a species is fighting against themselves. If that is the case, we should focus our energy on getting help from the Core Galaxy Alliance and forget about them. Aldrinch's dark spots slowly reappeared as he spoke. Absolutely not. Amara was incisive. You said it yourself that we done and have many bargain chips to negotiate. We cannot afford to waste an opportunity like that. I'm afraid I failed to grasp your meaning, Princess. Well, but that's easy. The humans are looking for a challenge. Then let's give it to them. Amara allowed her body to be filled with an energetic orange, showing the excitement she had in finally saying to Core part of her idea. Instead of showing them the more peaceful corners of our planet, why don't we take them to places like the Noxious Chasm and the Eben Range? To embark on such an endeavor would be sheer folly. Few of our kin dare to traverse those treacherous lands. Bringing the humans into such perils would invite disaster, ruining the meticulously cultivated perception of our world as anything but a fiery inferno. Aldrinch didn't understand how Amara's idea would help them at all. To say that this would destroy our chances of being helped by the Core Galaxy Alliance would be an understatement. If we chose that path, I can see the more extremist races such as the Asadians openly advocating to leaving us to our demise. But the humans would be put in the same basket, wouldn't they? Amara purposely let hints of bright yellow appear around her dark spots to express the mischievous pride she had in her idea. Aldrinch stood up again and receded to the solitude of his inner world as he contemplated the idea. Amara noticed the inner conflict in the old man's thoughts and decided to keep pushing her idea. Making alliances and getting trading deals may not be their primary goal now, but sooner or later they are going to need that. And when the time comes, guess who will be the only ones who won and be scared of them? Your reasoning is not without merit, but let us not forget your own words of caution about playing a dangerous game. This endeavor carries even greater risks. What if a human representative perishes on those treacherous lands? Or worse, what if they become overwhelmed by fear and withdraw from the mission altogether? I am not saying there are no risks involved, but you are the one who said we have very little concessions to offer. After hearing the old man using her own words against her, she ended up doing the same out of spite. If danger can be avoided, why not choose the path of greatest reward with the perks of giving a good scare on those deceiving wimps who can? And stop reiterating we haven't done enough to deserve to be saved. Aldrinch didn't say anything. He approached the holographic chamber and used his claws to interact with the controls to alternate the view to a series of maps and documents. Amara waited apprehensively without uttering a single word, as she had a feeling that it wouldn't be a good time to interrupt the old man. After exactly 1 minute and 27 seconds, Aldrinch made eye contact. I hope you kept the conversation logs with the humans. We are going to need those if we want to convince your mother and the elders to change their plans. Are you going to support me? Amara found it hard to contain yellow from showing. Just because I cannot die without seeing the chaos in the Parliament when we send them a detailed report of the humans visiting the Eben Range. Amara almost let her happy mood cloud her mind about the other things she had to ask, but in no time, she forced her mind to focus on how to broach the topic of joining the first meeting crew. I know what you want to ask, and the answer is no. The little pause in the conversation was enough for Aldrich to anticipate her question. I know you? I've grown up and are by no means the same Navy girl who is impatient and willing to do something stupid without understanding the consequences. But that doesn't change the fact that you are too important to take such a dangerous job and put alien technology inside your body. To have her intentions read so easily was truly annoying, but that gave Amara the excuse she needed to give up the mind games and speak her mind. I am grateful to you, Aldrich. I've learned a lot from you when you refused to give me the poison and explained to me why getting rid of my brother wouldn't solve all my problems, she went on. But those were not all the lessons that episode taught me. What do you mean, young one? Aldrich didn't try to guess her intentions. In a sincere display of yellow, she concluded, I also learned it as better to ask for forgiveness than permission. 1. Iresians don't cry with tears falling down their eyes and sobbing. Instead, they lose every color of their exterior and end up looking like a cathode ray tube TV showing static. 2. Iresians don't have hair but have an elongated extension of their skin at the top of their heads that is thin and disposable. It serves to protect their head against the unforgiving radiation of their planet. This was an account of the events that led to the admission of Princess Amara into the first meeting crew. Here are some questions that might interest you based on your recent queries. What kind of danger would the humans find on the Eben Range? Was humanity aware of the spying? Who are the parents of the baby?